disruptive.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So you might recall recently we discovered this video of a Canadian journalist who was arrested, falsely arrested, in a setup gig to prosecute this guy for apparent assault. You remember what happened with Rebel News and David Menzies, who asked Chrystia Freeland, who is the Deputy Prime Minister here in Canada, simple questions about what's going on with Israel and Palestine, you know, just doing the journalistic integrity that a lot of, mainstream reporters are not willing to do. They don't feel that initiative to be journalists as they should be doing. And David Menzies asked Chrystia Freeland a few questions, and there was a setup that happened. So before we get into the response that Chrystia Freeland's about to give, because it's absolutely hilarious, let me just remind people exactly what went down in this situation.
And how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nazis? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault.
Sir,
why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault.
Please.
So what happened was that David Menzies was asking Chrystia Freeland a question. He walked on by. There was a guy standing there undercover. He was a cop. He was an RCMP officer undercover wearing civilian clothing. And he stands in front of David Menzies and then grabs him, throws him against a bus terminal, and says that he is under arrest for assault. David Menzies, the reporter, is under arrest for assault for accidentally bumping into an undercover cop. And it gets worse from here.
Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me.
You pushed into me.
You bumped. I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here, and you just bumped into me. So excuse
Police, you're under arrest.
me. What is your name and your badge? What is your name and your badge?
You've been told you're under arrest.
Why am I under arrest? He blocked my way. What?
Sir.
I was just scrumming Chrystia Freeland.
I'm a police officer. You're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge
I'm
number?
assaulting a police officer.
How is that possible?
Okay, because
You assaulted me 3 years ago when blackface was
I was very aggressive.
You mean I was asking questions?
So you notice how David Menzies was asking why he's under arrest. The undercover cop, who says he's a cop, but not willing to show his badge number or how he's connected as a police officer, which is a requirement. You're supposed to, if you're asked for a badge number, you need to know what the officer's name is that arrested you. They didn't show that, but he said he was under arrest for assaulting the officer. Not Chrystia Freeland, but the officer felt he was assaulted by the journalist for accidentally bumping into him as the officer was standing there purposely, so that David Menzies was to bump into him. So this is all a pretext setup to allow Rebel News to get a Rebel News reporter arrested for the simple act of journalism. And they had the undercover cop assault the journalist to say he was arrested for assaulting the officer. And then they get Chrystia Freeland's henchman to also step in because David Menzies was asking questions of why am I being arrested? Why am I, why am I under arrest? You haven't really charged me with anything. You're just assuming I assaulted you, even though you are the ones that grabbed me and threw me against a bus terminal. Why am I the one under arrest?
Aggressively?
No, your actions you were almost pushing everybody over. That's how it appears.
Lincoln, you got this on video, right? He's saying I'm pushing people over?
Yeah,
that's an absolute falsehood.
There were.
So, Chrystia Freeland's security henchman is making a false story saying that David Menzies is pushing people. He's the one attacking people, apparently, for asking Chrystia Freeland a question. And they are making false equivalencies. They're making up false stories to, again, further the reasoning to arrest a journalist for the simple act of journalism here in Canada.
shuffling.
So
all
now
on
it
this
appeared
all.
that way. That's what you're saying, officer?
Well,
It
that's
appeared
what-
I was
that's what I
pushing
saw.
people.
Well, that's
I
what I
didn't
saw.
touch a single person.
That was a little bit aggressive for what was happening. Get that. You're under arrest. Please
Okay.
take the microphone out of my face.
Well, I'd like an ongoing.
He claims he was being a bit aggressive. Aggressive by what? Asking questions? Was the tone of voice not good enough for you? Was it not proper, not friendly to ask the Deputy Prime Minister a simple question? It's apparently inappropriate. It's a little aggressive there. Coming from the people that took the journalist and slammed him against a bus terminal. And it was a loud slam, too. You could hear it on camera. Pow! Right against a bus terminal.
Record of this.
Can I have the microphone? Can I have the microphone? Can I have the
So
microphone?
there they are trying to arrest him. Like, he's getting assaulted.
Take your hand out.
We're apparently getting charged for assaulting an undercover cop.
You don't need to resist, sir. You don't have to say anything. You know the drill.
I have nothing to hide, officer. Welcome to Blackfaces Canada. This is what they do to journalists. I was merely scrumming Minister Freeland, and a RCMP officer blocked me, and evidently this is now a trumped-up charge of assault, folks. I didn't come here to cause any trouble. I came here to do my job, and now I'm handcuffed. This is your Canada now, folks. You know, this is the Gestapo taking Blackface's orders. Outrageous. And meanwhile, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is not a terrorist organization. Is not a terrorist organization. And these liberals have the audacity to show up at a vigil for a plane in which almost 200 people were killed, 57 Canadians, one unborn child, by the way. And look at this. They don't want, it is against the law in Blackfaces Canada to ask insensitive questions, impolite questions. So a Canadian government that props up an Islamo-fascist regime, that's okay. But if you ask questions about that, that's not okay. This is an absolute outrage. I didn't come here to cause trouble, folks. I just came here to ask questions.
You're gonna have to back up a little bit, okay? They're conducting an.
And now you know why mainstream journalism is in absolute ruins. You wonder why, you know, the modern journalism is, like, dead. There is no journalism if you turn on your TV. If you read the papers. It's just basically PR stenographers that are going around just repeating the talking points that they hear from from White House or the Parliament building. They just repeat the same exact arguments and then just parrot it to their readers and viewers, hoping they regurgitate that. There's no investigative journalists. There's no people that are actually holding things accountable. And people that do hold things accountable, even with Rebel News, and there's a lot I could say about Rebel News. I thought they were good during the Freedom Convoy, but there's a lot of questions on their other practices. But let it be known that you're arresting a journalist for asking questions. That is just absolutely crazy. And considering the fact that Canada is supposed to be this, you know, true patriot love, diverse nation, they care so much about free speech. When we showed this video, it was just moments after the Liberal Party slammed the Conservative Party for saying that they were against free speech. And here you are looking at the Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau's administration, hiring a bunch of hitmen to go after a journalist. All in the names of free speech and free journalism, and free of the press. So now that some time has passed, now that, you know, this became a viral sensation, people are aware of who David Menzies is and how this is all a political stunt, a motivated stunt to detain a journalist for asking questions. Listen to Chrystia Freeland's response. Because now she had time to think it over and take it in. And listen to her response when a reporter asked her about arresting a journalist for being a journalist.
David Menzies. So I want to start with what was important about Monday. And what was important about Monday, January 8th.
So right off the bat, she's going to completely ignore the question. Completely ignore the question. Because the reporter asked about, how do you feel about the arrest of David Menzies and this trumped up charge of him assaulting a police officer who clearly was not assaulting him, but the officer was actually insulting the journalist for the simple notion of being a journalist and asking you a question. What are your regards to that? Chrystia Freeland completely ignores that. She goes on to say, well, we got to talk about the important thing of what happened on Monday. Let's not focus on the fact that we arrested a journalist under false pretenses and made up stories about him. No. Let's focus on the major issue of Monday and listen to what the major issue is.
8th that was the 4th anniversary of a date that I think forever needs to be marked and circled in black on the calendar of all Canadians. It was a tragedy for Canada. Canadians were criminally murdered. And I want to say to the families and loved ones of the people who were murdered that Canada remembers, Canada will not forget. And that's why I was in Richmond Hill. Marcy was there too, to show that this is a Canadian tragedy, that Canada remembers and Canada will not forget. On the incident, as you guys know.
Dude, does Chrystia Freeland and Kamala Harris share the same, like, speechwriters? Like, this is a very important time, and we, as Canadians, we need to remember and not forget, and remember and not forget this important day, because this day is very important to us, of the lives that are lost, and it's very important that we as Canadians remember and reflect. By the way, anytime politicians have ever said that, and I can tell you truthfully, when Justin Trudeau made that his own little personal stunt when it came to the Truth and Reconciliation Day, remember when they announced that? It was supposed to be a day to reflect on the tragedies of the residential schools when it came to Aboriginal kids, and we were supposed to respect the Indigenous people and take a time to reflect on that. Justin Trudeau went on vacation. Justin Trudeau took tax dollars on a day that he's supposed to reflect on Native people and went to some sunny vacation spot. How much reflecting did you do? How much sympathy did you feel for the Indigenous people, considering the fact that Indigenous people are still getting screwed by this government, but yet somehow they made a day for them to go on vacation? Like, this is the neoliberal scumbag, exploiter of how to solve problems. Like, I'm not actually going to do anything to stop race baiting, but I'm going to create Juneteenth the holiday. Like, do you see that kind of notion? Even though things can be fixed if we stop race baiting and focus on economic issues that affect everybody. Get people a good job, have sustainable health care and education so that people of all credences can actually get prosperous results here in Canada. No, we wouldn't do that. But we'll make a holiday specifically for us to go on vacation and pretend that we're reflecting. Like, it's just so ridiculous. And the fact that she's doing this to ignore the situation that you, Chrystia Freeland, had played up to arrest a journalist under false pretenses. But now she's going to attempt to try and actually answer the question.
Very well. Canada is a rule of law country. Canada is a democracy. Operational decisions about law enforcement are taken by the
Canada is law and order. We're a democracy. From sea to shining sea, it's a democracy. True patriot love. And that's why we had to arrest a journalist under false pretenses. But We understand the rule of law. Is that why you had to make up a story on the fact that this was all captured on camera, by the way? You had to make up the story that David Menzies was pushing people, that he was attacking, assaulting people, that clearly was not shown on camera, that clear evidence as day showed David Menzies was innocent, and that you were actually grabbing him and throwing him against a bus terminal? Where's the law and order that vindicts the police officer who was undercover? Where's the law and order that files him as an assaulter?
The police of jurisdiction, quite appropriately, political elected officials have no role in the taking of those decisions, and that's why I don't have any further comment.
Bull. He says that political electives can't have control over that situation. Yeah, that's why you had perfect timing that you showed up at Richmond Hill and you had your henchmen surrounding you while a journalist came up to you and asked a simple question, and that officer so conveniently was standing in the middle of the way so that David Menzies would purposely bump into him and claim assault. Your hands are perfectly clean. You had nothing to do with it. Yeah, right. Give me a break. If you really think that David Menzies is at fault for assault in that situation, I got a few boosters to sell you. Maybe you should cancel your Disney Plus account, Chrystia, and try to rehash that situation. Look at all the times we could show you that video to prove otherwise, that you were actually the instigator in creating this havoc and having that officer assault the journalist because you did not want the journalist to ask you questions. You did not want to be confronted. You felt scared that you orchestrated this to take down a rebel news journalist, which is something that probably the Canadian government wanted to do in the first place. Because we know that the Canadian government, with all their new laws and tactics of C11, C18, and the Online News Act, and taking down podcasters, they always wanted to find a way to take down independent media. Well, now they're finding new chances. Now they're creating situations that, hey, we could just arrest a journalist. We'll just claim it's assault. Unbelievable. And by the way, this is what she's apparently claiming is more important. Which, again, yes, it is important to recognize that there was Canadians that died on that tragic day. But that doesn't cover up the fact that you, Chrystia Freeland, purposely arrested a journalist. That doesn't cover the fact that you purposely attacked a fellow Canadian for the simple act of his profession of being a journalist and holding you accountable. That doesn't cover up the situation. It's just unbelievable how crazy this gets. So now, here's David Menzies firing back at what Chrystia Freeland and how this got reported. So David Menzies is going to recap all this and listen to what he has to say.
Make no mistake, this was a stitch-up. I was framed. If you care to watch the video, again, check out the 9-second mark. That's when this Royal Canadian mounted henchman sticks out his arm to block me. But again, why? Just like Freeland, he knows who I am. I experienced two emotions during that encounter, folks. The first was shock. The second was a profound sense of deja vu.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Let's go.
I wasn't even under arrest when I endured that smackdown. That's because there was nothing to arrest me for. I was a journalist standing on a public sidewalk waiting to ask a question. What you saw in both that video from 2021.
So I completely forgot about that. In 2021, they detained him. I forgot about that. I wish I had that clip now. there was police officers, they didn't charge him with anything because exactly what he said, they can't charge him with anything. He wasn't convicted of any crime. He was a fellow journalist standing on the sidewalk on a public street just waiting to ask a question. There's no law against that. There's nothing to charge him with. But yet they have officers trying to track him down because he is a journalist from the outsider media that was going to ask a question, that was going to hold something accountable, and they did not like that. So they had to find a way to get this guy silenced and away from the public spotlight, and that's what they did in 2021, and now they're trying to do this again in 2024 by enacting this scenario that somehow an assault happened when you could clearly see in the video that the undercover cop was holding out his arm to stop the guy. He was clearly a bodyguard trying to stop him and take this guy down. Why? Because he is a journalist from the outsider media, and considering that the Canadian government has such a tactical force to go against outsider media, this is just another scheme of theirs to try to create this havoc, to arrest journalists, to arrest and silence independent broadcasters, even if it is Rebel News. Take it as you will. Like I said, I have mixed feelings about this organization, but when push comes to shove, this is wrong either way. I don't care who it is. I don't care what they represent. The fact that you're taking down a fellow broadcaster and a fellow journalist for the simple act of journalism is absolutely apprehensible. It's absolutely disgusting and attacks every single notion of free press and free speech in this country.
And in the video from just 3 days ago is Banana Republic stuff. Make no mistake.
So there you go. That's David Menzies explaining that he was falsely arrested. How this is all a manufactured stunt organized by people like Chrystia Freeland, because she knew this was going to happen. She had this perfectly planned out. Don't think that, she had her hands clean and didn't know this at the time, and she was just thinking about the poor Canadians that died on January 8th. No. She had this perfectly stemmed out. She knew who this guy was. You could clearly see in the video he's holding a microphone that says Rebel News. So obviously you know this guy's a journalist asking a question. And this all rolled out because, again, they're trying to find new tactics to silence out people, outsider media, that's critical of the establishment. That is what they're trying to do, and they're finding a new tactic to do so. In that case, they're falsely accusing a journalist of assault. And clearly, the evidence in the video proves otherwise. In fact, the journalist was assaulted. Not the journalist causing the assault, but he was assaulted by the undercover cop. He was slammed against the bus terminal. He was falsely arrested. They handcuffed him. They sent him off to prison. It was just an absolute demonstration of what a totalitarian government is trying to do to take down independent journalism. And meanwhile, they have the audacity to say that Pierre Poilievre, because he told a journalist, a corporate journalist, to smarten up and to shut up, is more of a threat to journalism, a threat to free press. And let's not forget that Canada also is very silent when it comes to Julian Assange. Just a note on the, principles of our free speech and free press and freedom of expression, that we have no sympathy for Julian Assange. We have no sympathy for people like David Menzies. We have no sympathy for the online broadcasters. That's why we're doing everything that we can in these ridiculous legislations to attack them, to find a way to attack these independent broadcasters and journalists and podcasters, so they wouldn't be able to be held, so they wouldn't be able to hold accountable the powerful, the corrupted, the elitists, the Trudeau regime, the Pierre Poilievres, the Jagmeet Singhs, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, all these different outlets. They wouldn't allow us to have a show if they continue on this reign. That's why this is so important. Regardless of how you feel about Rebel News, that's why this is so important. That we need to fight to keep journalism and freedom of speech and freedom of the press alive and well here in the true patriot love of Canada.